Well, first things first, what kind of drew your interest in 10 Minutes to Midnight?
The minute I read the script, I started walking around the room reading the lines. And I embraced it immediately. It's one of the best scripts and one of the best stories that I've seen for an actress in the last few years. The only other role that I played that's come close was Greenlight, which is a wonderful film as well, directed by Graham Denman. But and it's a great individual story. Most of the things that I've seen for women, especially in my age group, they're always moms and grandmoms, and that's great. The nuclear family is the genesis of a lot of great stories. But I like best the families that we kind of create. The crew of the
Yeah.
Nostromo, the staff of the hospital, the people that work at the newspaper, those sorts of things, because it takes you out of anything that might be predictable. And this story was so unpredictable. I just didn't. I it had it permitted me as an actress to work every single angle in my skill set.
Yeah, and it was really refreshing and a kind of a new take on vampire films as well, which was really surprising because it feels like that's kind of been beaten to death almost. But in 10 Minutes to Midnight, it just felt kind of refreshing the way it came off.
Agreed. I completely agree. I completely agree.
And your character, again, is a DJ. In a lot of ways, it's a callback to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 in a way where you played Stretch in that. Is that another reason you kind of took on this part as well?
Absolutely. I loved that Eric, it was a bit of a shout out to Toby, but he loved taking the character full circle. I started out as a leading actress in Chainsaw 2. Great part, loved it. This is a completely different take on that. But it's very meta. And we managed to find some moments throughout the story where we could send a little kiss to Stretch. So it was so satisfying. It was so satisfying to be able to do it again, but in an entirely different way.
And the young cast around you was also so fantastic. How was it like getting that chemistry with all of the cast members in 10 Minutes to Midnight?
It was utterly seamless, and that once again goes to Eric Bloomquist as a director. He cast the film in an absolutely impeccable way. First choices all the way around. Um, all of us had a really seamless chemistry. I think of the film, in fact, it's an ensemble cast. Each scene flows with just utter perfection, and we played off of one another in a completely spontaneous way. Every actor was at his best, and it was easily one of the most satisfying weeks that I've spent as an actress. And the unfortunate thing is now I'm spoiled, and now for my follow up, I want something that's going to be as good or better, and that's going to be hard to find.
Yeah, and with 10 Minutes to Midnight, that's a high bar to set and saying that you
It's going
want
to be
something better
impossible.
too. Yeah.
It's going to be impossible for a while. I don't know that there's anything that would be comparable.
And also the visuals in 10 Minutes to Midnight was just astounding, especially when it was just you in the dark picking up the phone. Just how was it
Oh,
like doing that scene in particular?
absolutely all credit to Thomas Wynn, because as a DP, he and Eric, they shared the same vision, but Thompson was constantly coming up with compositions, camera positions, and the composition of his shots that were in a way very innovative. We had small spaces in the radio station, but once we got to the middle school gymnasium where that scene was shot, Thompson had to sort of wrap everything in duvetine and come up with some lighting schemes that were going to help pull it off in a perfect way. And I think he did. And I also have to say, performance in that scene was completely contingent and credited to Alice Kremmelberg from Orange is the New Black. She plays my younger self, my younger conscience. And she was there with me. And the bond between us was complete. It was total. Interacting with her, acting with her, I can't even describe it because the two of us were one. We really merged as Amy Marlowe. We both had a complete knowledge and embrace of Amy Marlowe at those two different stages in life. And it made that scene, it's easily one of the definitive scenes of the film.
And the way you're talking about everything that happened on 10 Minutes to Midnight, it seems like it was a dream come true for you, everything that was going on set. So just speaking of that, just how was it watching it all unfold in that way, in your perspective?
I was nervous about it. I'm not kidding. I knew what the requirements of the role were going to be going in. It's the first time I've had anything resembling a leading role in an incredibly long time. Like I said, the only movie I could compare it to is Green Light, directed by Graham Denman. And Graham, it's unusual, Graham and Eric have they're very similar in many ways. You know, the last 4 years, my life has changed really dramatically. And my children are grown. I have been pursuing a very independent life in the hopes that something like this, a role like this would happen. And at long last, after nearly 4 years, it has. So it had an enormous personal significance for me as well. And I invested myself fully, which was easy to do because my faith in Eric and Carson Bloomquist, Thompson Wen, the DP, and these marvelous actors. I can't even begin to explain what an incredible experience it's been and how audiences and critics have embraced us so completely.
Yeah, because honestly, I didn't know what to expect with 10 Minutes to Midnight because I get so many independent screeners as a film critic, but this one really took me aback because it was so different. Like I said, it was like a breath of fresh air into that vampire kind of subgenre, and I think that'll take to a lot of audience members as well when this is out and people can see it.
I think Eric and Carson took the vampire angle. It's a vehicle for the story that they tell. It's simply a means to an end.
Yeah.
And nobody's done it that way. Usually a vampire movie is a vampire movie and you're going for guts and glory and gore and solid vampire wall to wall. This one is not like that. This movie is not like that.
And that's another fantastic thing about what you can do with horror movies is you can feed people vegetables while they have their desserts. And that's what I think 10 Minutes to Midnight delivers in spades. And just when you read the script, that kind of had to be similar to your experience as well, just like the subplot and the main story they were getting across.
Absolutely. And the thing is, there are stories, those other stories of the other characters, because they really thoroughly developed those characters. Nobody's there just for utilitarian value. Nobody's there for a kill or a gag. The cast, each character does have its own story and its own psychology. And that's one of the things that I also loved. They were also thoroughly developed.
And a lot of our members on Infamous Horrors may know you from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which we talked about earlier. But what would you say were some of your favorite movies that you were a part of in your career?
Chainsaw will always be my basic identifying feature. Stretch will be on my tombstone, but what a great character to have played, that she is at this point sort of legendary in a way. Um, and she's been very inspiring to a lot of people. Um, all the television and all the films that I've done, everything that I've been so privileged to appear in has brought something interesting into my life and into my creative life mostly. And all of them have brought me to this point. The high points, I would have to say, Contracted, written and directed by Eric England, very gifted filmmaker. Um, Working for Adam Green and BJ McDonnell in Hatchet 3. I had once again, it was one of those all-star casts. I got to work with Daniel Harris. I got to
And
work
that
with
was
Sid
so
Haig.
fun you brought that up because when that came out, me and my best friend at the time, we went to go see 4 movies in one day, and I think that was the kickoff when Hatchet 3 came out at like midnight. That was the first of the 4 that we went to go see that day, and it was so much fun.
And the legend continues. Victor Crowley, Adam created a new horror monster to go with Leatherface and Freddy and Jason and everybody else that we know. And it was such an honor and a privilege, and it was such a joy to work on that film. And again, Greenlight, directed by Graham Denman, a wonderful film noir, and noir is a big favorite of mine. I love all those movies from the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
That's the backbone of my film history, sort of, as a viewer and a fan. And all of those films and all of those roles brought me to 10 Minutes to Midnight, where I am today. And of all those films, the movie that's getting the most boom is 10 Minutes to Midnight. And it's incredibly gratifying to be in this place at this moment. I never dreamt anything like this would happen. And all credit goes to Eric Bloomquist and Carson Bloomquist. Their creative life, their inner creative life is so extraordinary. They have so many successes ahead of them. And they're going to be creating so many great products that people will enjoy for years to come. It's wonderful to be a part of that kickoff, to this incredible career.
And Caroline, we got one more question. What were some of your favorite movies that got you into acting?
Oh gosh, I've been around a long time, dude. There have been so many. The great lesson of movies for me is I can lose myself in a movie completely. I remember being a small child in Jackson, Mississippi. My mom took me and my big sister to the downtown square, to the Capri Theater, and dropped us off to go see Bambi. And the emotions that film brought into me were so extraordinary. It was almost like a drug. And I lived the Bambi movie for days and days. I was acting out Bambi for days and days. And what that said to me is, when you walk into a movie theater and all those strangers are sitting around and those lights go down and that film starts on that big screen, you have the opportunity to disappear into another world. I love that.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us on Infamous Horrors. It's been really fun talking to you.
I appreciate being a part of Infamous Horrors, and thank you so much for taking the time to interview me today.
Anytime, Caroline. Have a great weekend.
And you as well.